Greetings everybody, welcome back to Daddy DeGrand, the Granddaddy. Actually is not going to play Curse of the Dead Gods today, no. I was asked to do a small, well, so to speak, list of what weapons I consider to be worth being unlocked. Because there's some very good weapons that I absolutely can endorse. There's also some not so good weapons that will just keep on clogging up your item stores and your random drops that you just don't really want to see in your games at all. So I'm gonna do a little bit of an explanation as for why I think that certain weapons are good and why I think that certain others are not that good. Starting out with the War Arcana. It is a weapon that I have unlocked and that I personally very like. I think it is a good unlock. There can be some pretty easy runs to be built around it. The only disadvantage is that main hand weapons in general are not in a very good spot right now in comparison to especially offense. So that's something you have to leverage. But if you say I really do like to use main hand weapons, then the War Arcana, definitely a good thing to pick up. The Gusting Glaive, it is a very fun weapon to use, and I personally really like it. I don't use it ever at all. And it is a very weird place to be in, you know, saying that you like it, but you still never use it. Almost always there are just better options that you would rather see than this, even though it is a fun one. So that is a little bit of a judgment call you have to make for yourself. Do you like a fun weapon with a unique mechanic more than you like seeing an actual good weapon? If yes, buy it. It doesn't cost a lot. If you don't, then better leave it to the side as you are starting playing this game. The Sacrificial Arcana, in my book, is just not worth it. In almost every situation, it is just not worth it. Don't buy it. It is heavily overrated. If you like to have crits on your sword, just go for the War Arcana because it does that job much better and much more secure. Abnegation, Shabel-Sherlock's Blade. Personally, it is a cursed weapon that I think almost always works. It is a very safe weapon because, you know, getting those constant finishers and charge attacks, interrupting your enemies. Every time an enemy is interrupted, he's not attacking you. An enemy that is not attacking you is an enemy that is not going to harm you. It is a bit low on the base damage, and because of the way that cursed weapons work right now, it is going to be hard to get a high damage run with it, but it's going to be possible. Now, this is the first boss cursed weapon in here. In order to get this one, you need to actually defeat the second boss in the Jaguar Temple after having parried the moon phase, the shadow phase, 3 times in that one fight. Then it has a 20% chance to drop in. Now, this weapon is not worth the effort at all. It is easily one of the worst weapons in the game, which is sad because by concept it is also a very fun weapon to use. It is about the same situation we had with the Gusting Glaive, but far more glaring because this weapon is very hard to build a proper run around. Now the Forge Hammer. The Forge Hammer is actually a very peculiar case. By itself, I consider it to be very bad because it is a mace, and I think maces are the worst weapons in the game. But there are some niche cases where the Forge Hammer can be amazing. One of them is you have some kind of fire offhand attack, like for example the Fire Shield, which I will come back to later. Or you use a specific blessing, namely Tamok's Breath, which allows your main hand, non-elementary main attacks to occasionally set the enemies on fire, so you just get all the free crits for exactly that, free. It is 2 niche cases that speak for this weapon, and both of those niche cases, on top of it being a mace, makes it reason enough for me to not want to unlock this. But if you unlock it and if those niche cases apply, you'll have a good time with this run, so make this decision up for yourself. It can go either way. Jewel Hammer. Well, here's the thing about Jewel Hammer. I think they made a mistake when they even put the Jewel Hammer into this slot, because I think Jewel Hammer should be a weapon that should be unlocked by default, because it is a very good weapon to just get people into start playing this game in a little bit of a safe zone, you know? Just passively providing that illumination means they will passively take less damage, even if you don't mindfully ignite torches left and right. But once you are at a point where you even get those Jade Rings in order to unlock it, you will never going to need it. It has decent base damage, 25 is quite a bit, probably the highest base damage you will see on any main hand weapon, but aside from that it really has nothing going for it. It is not worth the unlock by the time you can get it. Now, if you want to have a mace, any kind of mace, even though I still consider them to be the worst kind of weapon in this game, the Spark Hammer should be your choice in action, because lightning attacks are just very, very strong. They deal a lot of damage, they apply additional crowd control, and the Spark Hammer has a decently fast and reliable way of applying those lightning attacks. It is a very, very okay one. Personally, I still regret it, because as I said, I hate maces, but if you ignore that, you're gonna have a decent time with it. Now, Claws of Evisceration, not worth it in my book. You get some free crits below level 30, but even those crits will not deal that much extra damage, and aside from that, it's a pretty empty weapon. It is not worth it. Now, the Disemboweler, Dread Claw. I will talk about this one together with this one. This is the other claw, that one you get for defeating the second boss in the Serpent Temple after while he is weak. So you have to parry an attack and then kill him so that he dies while he's weak. I really like these two and think they are good unlocks, because they are very good weapons to combo together with elemental offhand weapons to get their benefits out of. They are very strong in that regard, they are very fast, and they are very easy to combo in and out with, so you can explore a lot of great potential there. For example, say you have a fire offhand weapon, and you can, for example, let's take the fire shield, because this is a very simple scenario. You go in, attack with a fire shield, apply that fire debuff on the enemies, then you strike them with the claws, and that will extinguish the fire effect and thus give you the weakening effect on the enemy, so that your fire shield can hit even harder. You can do that with any of the cursed weapons, but it is the easiest and most stable and fastest to do with these two cursed claws. So if you want to unlock any cursed weapon, I highly suggest making it one of these two, or both. Fire claws, if you like claws, they are probably the best option to go, just because having that fire effect is almost always gonna be nice. Fire effects in general have the nice advantage of also being a defensive effect that you can have. You know, you attack the enemy, is set on fire, thus illuminating your area, and thus you will take less damage, while you also have that elemental attack that you can then further enhance with fire damage relics. So, very good choice, both offensively and defensively, absolutely worth the effort. Warmonger Claws. I was on the fence about them, but they can end up being very powerful, pretty fast, if you just keep on piling the Constitution, which is relatively easy to do. So you can absolutely rock that and have a good time with it. You don't need to unlock it. This is not exactly a weapon that provides a playstyle that is transformative enough to make it an absolute must. But if you just like stacking stats on one of another and getting a lot of synergy out of it, it's gonna be nice, it's gonna be fine. Now, for the throwing knives. The Silver Stars, I have a very mixed opinion about those. First of all, I think they are a lot of fun to play with, and that perfect dodge projectile attack that you get, it's just kind of satisfying to see it every time it happens. But if you leave that aside, the weapon doesn't really do all that much. It is not exactly strong. It doesn't have any other fancy mechanics going on in there. It is a nice gimmick. It is a nice gimmick to have, especially if you focus more on your offhand weapon. Just getting those extra attacks as a bonus is gonna be nice. This one is purely optional. Purely optional, I would say, but it is a fun option to be had. Now, the chromatic knives. They read as if they would be super amazing, right? Every elemental attack in here slammed onto one set of throwing knives. It is not. It is super disappointing. You will try so hard finding a run that makes good use out of them. You will never find it. You will just never ever find it. You will try so hard, but you will never get far. There will always be something else better than this one, which is sad, but it's just the way it is. Now, Heartseeker's Teeth of Death. This one is a very, very weird one for me, because before they changed the cursed weapons around, this one used to be one of my absolute favorites. And just in terms of game style, play style, it still absolutely is. It makes you feel like you are just, honest to God, John Wick entering a room and just completely destroying all the enemies in the room by swiftly throwing knives left and right in all the directions. But then they changed the cursed weapons around, and it feels like this thing, except for very, very few niche cases, doesn't have any damage at all. It also, there's some cases where it does interact weirdly with the extinguishing, because there seems to be a kind of lingering extinguishing effect there going on. So, unless they do some kind of change in the future, I actually suggest against unlocking the Heartseekers. They may make a comeback, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. The Lamut Grape Shot Revolver, it is very, very bad. It is very, very bad. It doesn't do a lot, and what little it does... Perfect shots deal damage to all targets in a cone, right? You can just as well use an offhand combo attack, which is going to be fast and also gives you crowd control with any of the actually good pistols, and you're going to have a good time doing so. So that is a no to the Lamut Grape Shot Revolver. Now, the Dragon Sleeve Gun, a little bit weak on the base damage, but a poison gun. Basically, elemental weapons are almost always good because they are pretty easy to build around. All you need to find is just some relics with the corresponding element, and then you're good to go. Pistols in general, pretty good because they are very, very stable with their CC. Just being able to stun a lot of enemies in the snap of a pistol. And if you get some good affixes on them, they can also deal great damage. The Alchemist's Fire Stick, I love this weapon an awful lot. The money you can make on a run that focuses on this thing is insane. And that money you will then invest into making your entire run much better while keeping your curses or your corruption on a low. And that just completely offsets the fact that this is not an offensive weapon. This is a purely utility-based weapon, but that utility is just that good. It is splendid. Now, the revolver. Don't unlock it. Thank me later. Cursed weapons. They already have hard-coded disadvantages in them, right? They went the extra mile and gave them extra misadvantages. And this weapon has yet another one. This one will take away your normal range attacks, and that is very, very bad, because sometimes you just want to do a quick shot to finish off a low target or to keep a greed combo going on. With this weapon, you can't. And the advantage to it, those double strength perfect shots, it sounds amazing, but it isn't. And that's the sad reality of things. Now, the Blazing Shield. Everyone who's ever followed my channel for any duration knows that the Blazing Shield is one of the best weapons in the game. It is strong, it is easy to build around, it is very safe just by virtue of being a shield. Blazing Shield is amazing. Blazing Shield is a weapon that carried me flawless runs more than once. One of them is actually on my channel, maybe I'll link it later down there. Blazing Shield is amazing. Especially when you're starting playing the game, shields in general are just that good because they help you with the parry mechanic, which is just busted. But the Blazing Shield will also prove to be a strong offensive choice on top of that. The Barbed Shield, honest to God, I'm not a big fan of it. It can be fun, getting some damage out of parrying an attack, but there is better options you could have instead. Like, for example, the Storm's Bulwark. Storm's Bulwark is amazing for similar reasons like the Fire Shield. There is one big advantage that the Storm Bulwark has. It's actually a little bit of a niche advantage, but I'm still going to talk about it. The advantage in question is, it is a lightning weapon instead of a fire weapon. So if you combine this one with a cursed main hand, like say for example the Claws, you will trigger a lightning strike on the enemy, which will then set the enemies on fire, which will then be converted into a weakening effect if you strike the enemy with the cursed weapon again. So you just get a lot of extra in the right circumstances, while almost being just as powerful than you are with a Blazing Shield, which we have already established is a great weapon. This Storm Bulwark, heavily suggest picking it up, it is amazing. Now for the Daggers. Honestly, don't buy any of these. Don't buy any of these. They are all bad. By default, you have the Sacrificial Dagger, which is amazingly powerful and very, very easy to build around. And the Poison Dagger, which is also very, very potent just by virtue of the fact that it is an elemental weapon. The rest of these are just not that good. This one flat out sucks since they changed the damage formula. And even before then, it was basically just okay. Don't take this Cursed Dagger. This one over here sounds amazing because of the extra damage it gets for having any of the elemental effects on your run. And some may even go as far and say, yeah, but Daddy DeGrand, what if I combine this with chromatic knives? No. That will happen only once in a blue moon, and even then it will be underwhelming. Because getting getting 2 effects on an enemy without outright killing him is gonna be hard. And even then, the extra damage is not gonna be that good. Obsidian Stiletto is a no. The Cursed Heartrender, also a no. Deals critical damage against weakened enemies. It is already pretty easy to get free crits with a dagger, and even if you don't, they do not matter all that much. Malicious Skewer, don't unlock it, trust me. You will never use it. It will never be worth your while. And the same goes for the Duelist Shiv, but for slightly different reasons. First of all, compare the base damage on this one, 30, to the dagger. You have to kill so many enemies to get the base damage up to 200%, which would then be 45. But you could also just take the Duelist Shiv, which already has twice the base damage of this thing, and will infinitely scale better. Now I still wouldn't pick up this thing, and the reason for that is that daggers in general, by default, are very economical. They have offhand combo attacks, which are nice, which are very, very powerful, and which also don't cost stamina. So a full stamina recharge on a successful offhand combo dodge sounds good on paper, but you will never get that much value out of it. And you don't ever want to see any of these instead of any of the actually good offhand weapons. Speaking of good offhand weapons, whips. I unlocked a lot of them just because I wanted to see them all in action at least once when they were released. And I do not regret any of them except for the Bone Shard Whip. The Bone Shard Whip is probably the only whip in the game that I think you should not unlock. It doesn't do a lot for you, and what little it does is just not that good. It sounds amazing, kills make attacks, deal critical damage for 3 seconds. It is actually not quite what it sounds like. It only makes your whip attacks actually get that critical damage treatment. And you already get free crits on your finishing strikes with the Bone Shard Whip. So it is not that big of a net benefit. So definitely leave this one out. But aside from that, Stinger Lash, it's a poisonous whip. Pretty strong base damage for a poisonous weapon too, which is amazing. You don't see that often. I'm actually expecting them to nerf that at some point. Crazy. Very easy to build a good run around. Then you have the Desperation's Flay. This one is actually very fun, because it changes the way you play. You actually try to get the most powerful attacks like an offhand combo attack or a finishing strike when you are low on stamina. And it hurts when you does. We're talking about a potential 75% extra damage just for expanding stamina. Desperation Flail, definitely worth it. Now for the cursed weapons. Flagellation, Mistress of Agony. I think this name is absolutely fitting. This thing can hurt like crazy as long as you stand in the dark. And because the offhand combo on this one is so wide, extinguishing light sources is also very easy, so that you can actually benefit from that extra damage pretty easily. Definitely worth it, a lot of fun to play around. And the same goes for Cataclysm. You see that beefy base damage. It is a fire cursed weapon, so you can actually get some fire damage relics in order to make it more powerful. And these fire jewels that you have a chance of spawning in, they can deal a lot of damage both to you, but also to your enemies. I had some runs in the past where I almost one-shot myself with one of those fire jewels. But trust me, there is almost nothing more fun than the Cataclysm Whip in this game. It is definitely one of the most fun playstyles this game has to offer. In order to get it, you have to defeat the second boss in the Jaguar Temple. In the Sun phase, you have to parry 3 attacks, and then you have a 20% chance to see it. If you can make that happen, it is going to be good for you. Now, for the two-handed weapons, this is going to be crazy. Stonebreaker not worth the unlock in my book. It is a very fun concept, you know, charge attacks strike 3 times in a line behind the point of impact. It sounds great, it sounds fun, and it actually is kind of fun. It just isn't that good. So, kind of similar concept to this thing over here. If you like the idea of doing that, if you think it's fun, do it. But I don't suggest you doing it, because there's just better options if you want to have fun with a heavy two-handed weapon. For example, the Jaguar Hammer. Very, very strong, very powerful, and just by virtue of the fact that it's a fire weapon, relatively safe, even though it is a two-handed weapon. Now, here's the thing. I personally am not a big fan of these two-handed weapon playstyles in general, these heavy weapons. But if I were to pick and choose one of them, it would probably be this one. Jaguar Hammer has helped me through some very, very hard runs in the past, especially as I was learning the game. And I am sure it can do the same for you. Don't rely on them, but get a feel for them, and they can do a lot of work for you. The Titan Slayer. I think the Titan Slayer is actually one of those weapons that is just overrated. You know, people see that free critical damage against elites and champions and bosses. It's cute. Well, here's the thing. Every third attack you do is already going to be a crit, just by virtue of the fact how this weapon is built. And crits, they are nice to have. They are not that nice to have. And it can be nice. Especially early on when you actually will need to rely on getting crits because you want to have that crit heal in your run. It can be nice, but it is not that nice. It is heavily overrated, and I actually suggest not getting it. Now, if you just want to see as many critical damage hits as possible, give it a go. But I haven't seen this thing in a long, long time, and I do not miss it one bit. Now, Cat Yum Yum. I think we all know that Cat Yum Yum is a lot of fun. Probably the most fun and transformative two-handed heavy weapon in the game. You unlock this one by defeating the witch while she is on fire. That's literally all you need to do. She has to be burning. She has to have the fire debuff on her the moment she bites the dust. Cat Yum Yum. It turns a very, very slow two-handed weapon into a very, very powerful ranged weapon with a lot of pushback. It is fun, and especially in the Jaguar Temple, you're just absolutely gonna demolish it. If you can get it, I highly suggest getting it, because it just adds a lot of quality, a lot of fun, while still being decently potent. Poison Spear, definitely worth the unlock, because it is very, very easy to build around. It is a spear, so just by virtue of the fact that you stand at a certain distance, you get free crits, but you also benefit from poison extra damage. And being easy to build around is a big quality in a weapon. I can't stress this enough. Poison Spear, I think, actually helped me get my first victory in the final Serpent Catacomb exploration. So I have a soft spot for that weapon just for that. Same goes for the Storm's Point. It is basically the same story, just with a bit more base damage and, of course, lightning finishers. Lightning weapons are, by default, the best elemental attack in the game. So you can do the math there. If a poison weapon is going to be good, then a lightning weapon of the same kind is going to be better. Unlock this one, you will not regret it. Now the Windfury Pike. This weapon used to be amazing before they nerfed it. And now it is just super, super underwhelming. I have not used this one in a long, long time, and I do not miss it one bit. Again, used to be amazing, is disappointing now. Can still work out. It is fun to play around, I give it that. Those charge attacks hitting that often makes this feel amazing. But again, it is not that good, it is not that potent, and has a lot of counter potential going forward. And is very, very stamina intensive too. I suggest against it, but if you want to give it a go, do it on your own risk. Now, Vengeance, Shebel Sherlock's Spine. This is a weird run. And most people watching this video, I make a wild guess and say that they probably will not have the parry mechanic down to a T. Which is kind of what you really need to have in order to make this spear work out. And even if you do have those parries down like they're second nature, the Dark Repose, it is fun. it is not that impactful in comparison to just having another honest to God spear. It is not that amazing, outstandingly powerful, to the point where it is better than any of the other spears we have already talked about in here. So, if you think that you are savvy with parries, give it a go, have some fun with it. Mind you that those dark repos almost always come from a distance very close, so you will not get crits on them. So that's something to consider when you actually build around this thing. It can be fun, but it is not exactly the best in my opinion. Bloodstake, Hunter's Torment. It was, for the longest time, one of the, if not the best cursed weapon in the game. Maybe even the best weapon in the game, just for the sake of speed running, you know? This weapon was absolutely destroying enemies very, very fast, very, very efficiently. It has high base damage, just looking at the number. It's 30 compared to 24, 24, 24, 22. You would get the crits on that. The piercing attack would absolutely demolish enemies as well. And even the charge attack would have some decent potential. But nowadays, we have already talked about how cursed weapons are in a very, very peculiar spot. And Bloodstake really, really felt it. If you think that is fine, if you think you still want to do it, you want to go with this one, you can. You absolutely can, but I think those 50 Jade Rings are better invested somewhere else. You actually have to unlock being able to buy this one first, and to do that, you have to defeat the first boss in the Jaguar Temple, while all of his cats are down. You have to punish all the cats first before taking them down and out. The Crippling Bow, that one I really, really like. It's just very, very satisfying to have the cripple mechanic active on demand. And you also get free crits just for doing perfect shots with this thing. So, again, same principle. Easy to build around. You have two things, crits and weakening effects. Easy to get the relics for it. Easy to get it started. Easy to exploit this thing for big old damage. It's a lot of fun. Same goes for these next two weapons, but for different reasons. This one is a fire weapon. This one is a poison weapon. Free crits, free fire damage and or poison damage, easy to build around, very enjoyable. And Annihilation. Probably one of my previous favorite cursed weapons in the game, just because it is a lot of fun to play around with. I don't think you really need to unlock it at this point, because there's a lot of challenges that the game just keeps throwing on you, where you can play with this thing for free. I actually don't know if you have to unlock this thing before those quests will pop in. You have to check that out for yourselves. If you don't, then don't unlock this thing. You will have enough fun with this one just thanks to those challenges popping in. If you think that you don't have enough fun just with that, unlock it if you want to. It doesn't have some kind of fancy unlocking condition, so you can just throw your Jade Rings on top of it. Now, you have seen there is a lot of Jade Ring costs associated with these things, especially with the cursed weapons. They are very expensive. I haven't spent any Jade Rings in quite a while, and even I have only accumulated 285. I think I actually have enough rings now to buy out everything I'm missing at this point. But before you make the conscious decision of buying anything of these items, go deep in yourself and ask yourself, is this really going to make my future playthroughs better? That is the thing that you really, really have to think here. Is this unlock going to be something that is going to make me excited in runs to come? Or will I just moan and groan because I don't want to see it? I hope this video helped you in that regard, helped you in terms of making some honest-to-God decisions here. If it did, let me know in the comments below. I'm probably going to do this video again by the time the full release is out. So, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. And I wish you the greatest of days and some honest-to-God good health during this interesting time we are living in. Have a good day.